that 1996, Prince Charles and Princess Diana got divorced. More than 4% of the UK population got internet access. Mitja Popovic, Serbian painter, died. And I moved to London and officially became a British Serb. My name is Maja Jordan. I was born in Belgrade, and my love for music led me to become a classical pianist. My other passion is promoting Serbia and Serbian culture, so I joined Serbian Council of Great Britain when it was founded in 2004 and have been an active member ever since. In the unusual circumstances in which we find ourselves in 2020, instead of self-isolating, the Serbian Council invites you to connect and share your story with others. We have different life experiences, but we have one thing in common. We were either born in Serbia or born in Britain but have Serbian origins, or are connected with Serbia in some way. So, what is your story? Let's find out what a couple story will reveal. Welcome! Dobrodošli na Čašicu razgovora. Maja Barcot, a British Serbian actress, is our guest today. Maja, thank you very much for joining our series A Cup of Stories.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure to talk with successful people, and you have Serbian background as you were born in Belgrade, but you have spent most of your life in England. So can you please tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So as a child, I came to live in London for a few years with my mum, who worked here for a time, and that's where I was educated here for a few years, and I was very young, so I picked up the language sort of then and there. Then we went back to Belgrade, and then I came back to study drama at drama school at Lambda in 2000. So I've been kind of a commuter, as it were, between Serbia and Britain, and now, yes, I have spent more than half my life living in Britain.
That would explain a lot, because we will talk later on about how difficult for foreign actresses and actors is to be accepted in this society. But before that, after you finished your studies, can you a little bit tell us more what you've been doing, where you've been acting? You have been successful in some series and films. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So when I graduated from Lambda, I started, it was sort of a classical training course, and I started mostly in theatre. So I spent quite a few years being in theatre. I played all sorts of parts. I was Dorothy in Wizard of Oz in Southampton. I played Nora in A Doll's House. I was at the RSC for a season, the Royal Shakespeare Company, Hull Truck, Southwark Playhouse, all of those wonderful theatres, and I sort of gained quite a lot of experience being on stage, and it was really, really beneficial for me. And then I sort of fell into working on television, which was something that I also really wanted to do. After a time, I thought, well, it would be great to gain some experience in telly as well. So yeah, I started doing that, and over the last few years, I've almost exclusively been doing a series such as Emmerdale, Doctors. I was on Cobra, which was on Sky last year, well, this year actually. Fortitude, The Widow. So there's all sort of lovely, lovely projects that gave me the opportunity to gain more of that experience and to play all sorts of different roles over the years. So that's kind of what my career's been, and I have been incredibly lucky to be working that much and gaining all of that experience.
in all that wide work experience, I know that artists like to do their job anyway, regardless what they're acting or playing in the music. But must be something what is favorite. So, which kind of role you really enjoy doing, where you can find yourself a little bit more engaged? In which type of role, so which particular role you did that you really enjoyed it?
Goodness, do you know what? I absolutely. I'm always very drawn to roles that challenge me. That so, for example, I played Lady Macbeth, which is something that feels so kind of different and off-center for me, but it was something that I enjoyed incredibly. I really love classical theatre, so Shakespeare roles have always been yes, a challenge, but at the same time, once you've got it, once you've got the script down, all your lines, and you've unpicked that text and you know exactly what you're doing, it's such a joy to play. But also at the same time, the stuff that I've done on television has been very different. I've also played Eastern European roles, and so completely different. And that's, again, a different medium. So you do things differently. You're kind of smaller, more subtle in your performances. And so that represents a challenge in its own way, especially once you've come out of the theatre and you're faced with that. So anything that is a challenge and that makes me work and also get to know myself through those roles is something that I enjoy to do.
As you said, the Eastern European roles are very much needed nowadays, the cinematography, because films are really going quite a lot to that side of the world, and covering topics from that side of the world. So has your Serbian background helped you? Has it influenced your career in that way? Or I guess it wasn't on the way, but how you feel that your Serbian background influenced your professional life?
So in terms of theatre, I didn't really notice it. I played English roles, and that was something that I played. And then I kind of started doing the telly stuff. And actually, yeah, it became, because people knew that I had this Eastern European background, that I was bilingual, then it was more a case of, oh, well, great, there's a lot of these parts that you can play, and that would certainly get me through the door into castings, and on television I have played a lot more Eastern European parts. I actually recently just did something which was called like a micro play, which is kind of in between television and a theatre performance, but it's almost like a filmed short theatre performance, and it was written by Tena Števicic, and that's where I played an Eastern European role. Like I played like a sort of young professional from Belgrade, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's helped me quite a bit, and also offered versatility in terms of all the things that I am able to do as an actress, which has been great, because I can kind of play both those worlds, and that's been very useful for me.
Then we come to this typical barrier that enacting foreigners have, because they've been complaining, or rightly probably or not, that the roles that they can accept are only foreign roles, and they are not really able to cross the barrier to become part of British theatre and British accent needed roles. So lots of people do have a problem to cross the barrier. You obviously didn't, because your accent is perfect. You grow up here, and you can easily be misled that you're not a foreigner at all. But now, going other way around, are you at all following what's happening in Serbia, and are you trying at all to get some roles there in Serbia? Because some actresses, like Vesna Stanovic, is very popular in Serbia too, and she has lots of work in Serbia even nowadays. although she lives in England for a long time. But do you have any connection in that way with Serbia, on your professional part, or you have enough work here in England, so you don't need it really?
Well, funnily enough, Vesna Stanovic and I actually did a play in Belgrade about 10 years ago now, and which we co-wrote. And yeah, it was a really, really interesting experience, and I would absolutely love to establish myself over there as well. But yes, as you say, it can be quite tricky, because you sort of, if you haven't established yourself beforehand in your country of origin, and then you've gone somewhere else, then it can be a bit tricky to try and play both those worlds. So so far, that's something that I would love to kind of break into, because from what I've seen of the projects that have been coming out of Serbia over the last 10 years, certainly, there have been some very, very high quality co-productions with Britain, with America, with Russia, you know, all sorts of different countries. So that is, and there are some incredibly talented actors, directors, crew, you know, they have such an established and highly developed world there of cinematography. So it is something that I would love to be a part of. And also my great-grandmother was an actress, and she was quite popular in her time, and she was in one of the, my great-grandmother, yeah, she acted in the theatre mainly, but then when cinematography started in Yugoslavia, she was in a few of the very first films that were made there.
Really? What's her name?
So her name's Tsarka Jovanovic.
Okay.
She was, yeah, she was my great grandmother, and so, you know, I would certainly love to kind of carry on that baton if I can, and make a success of it in Serbia as well. If an opportunity comes along, I'm absolutely open to that. Yeah.
So it seems that you are following what is happening in Serbian cinematography lately, regardless that you live outside, because we do tend to lose the contact. Regardless how much we think that we are really in touch with things, we miss quite a bit in all sorts of ways. Not politically maybe, but yes, in art, because politics, we are always watching what's happening there. But now there is other problem that as musician found with lots of my colleagues. When we try to do some work with the Belgian, there is a bit of barrier there. It's like you are trying to enter some group of people, and they kind of want to, but they don't want to. Because it's a small society, small groups, much less opportunities, obviously, in Serbia in generally. So I don't know, is it that because they want to keep all this opportunity for themselves, or it's just that they just feel that we left, and then why we are back. Sometimes people even say, for people which come back, oh, he hasn't succeeded, and this is why he returned. So I found that little bit of pushing us away from it, although we really try hard to keep that connection. Maybe it's just my personal experience, maybe not, and maybe I'm wrong in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the thing, isn't it? It's within our professions. I think you'll find that these worlds are quite small and quite, you know, close knit, where everybody knows each other. And I think that's you'll find that that's probably quite, you know, the case in most places where you may go and try and penetrate those worlds, because yeah, there are people there already who are established, and you know, who have their way of working, and yeah, and you're right, the work is something that is very important, and so the groups tend to be kind of quite close knit, and you know, I mean, I've found in my career that I've you know, if I've got on with somebody and I've worked with them once, they will probably ask me to work with them again, you know, and we might become a little ensemble of actors because we all like working with each other. So that also happens, yeah.
Obviously, there is also that professional link, that because you know somebody, you know how to work. Because you see in Serbian films in last 10 years or longer, there is usually the same group of people. It's almost like you became friends with them, almost because you see them in all sorts of films, like Bogerlich and guys. They are great actors. Nobody says anything about that. They are really great, but they're the same bunch of people, like friends, like we do here in music. We have ensembles and we play together all the time. So probably nothing to complain about it because. But then on the other side, Belgrade and Serbia is very much used for foreigners to come to screen films. And we had few really famous actors, some films like November Man and other films. And I even by accident just got some new students to teach. And the mother is director, and when they had the time from Belgrade, they've been telling me how great place this was. They worked there, they screened the film there, although the film was happening in Russia, so our big buildings do remind a little bit of Russia, so it could be used in all sorts of different ways. But what I want to say, she said how professional people are there, and how much they enjoyed not just the people, but in professional way they were really impressed with the way that our cameramen and all others guys were working with them. So that's something good to praise that we do have, and maybe we should sell it even better outside of the.
Yeah, I mean, you know, cinematography in Serbia and in other, you know, ex-Yugoslav countries is really top notch, and the talent is great, and people know what they're doing, and they're incredibly good at storytelling. You know, you look at all the films that have come out, you know, in the last 50, 60 years. I mean, my goodness, you know, I was kind of struggling when you kind of said, oh, what do you think your favorite film is? I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got so many, you know. It's because there are so many wonderful films that really make you think and that tell beautiful stories about, you know, diverse communities and, you know, different religions and all sorts of different things that we may have come across over the years as a country. So, yeah.
So which film you chosen then?
Oh my God, yes. There are so many, but...
or few, you can give us few.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do have one which honestly stayed with me. It still stays with me. I saw it in the Rain Dance Festival a few years ago, and it's filmed by Goran Paskaljevic, and it's called Kad svane dan, or When Day Breaks, with Mustafa Nadarevic. Honestly, I mean, I get quite emotional watching films, and my boyfriend was saying, well, I'm a great crier, you know, but I will be that person that will cry in the cinema. But this was a story so beautifully told, and something that I felt I was so inspired after it, and I just completely felt, first of all, the need to tell a story like that. And then I felt so honoured to have been a part of the audience on that day to watch it, because it's beautiful, and I would certainly recommend it to anyone who hasn't managed to see it thus
It is
far.
exactly what I say. I'm trying to follow, but I never watched that film. So we do miss, as I said, as you live, although you're trying your best, but you can't, because obviously there is lots of other things that you are following on other sides from British point of view. So thank you very much for that recommendation. Then what I want to say, films are not just entertainment or they are cultural thing, but in everyday life you will find that we are all using the phrases from the films which really explain situation. So films are really involved in everyday life so deeply. So this is where cultural differences show. Then we say to one each other, "O vozi Miško," which means drive Miško. Not that you mean to anybody, but for us, because that comes from the film Ko te tamo peva, that comes from the Serbian humor, that comes from so many levels that we will know exactly what that means. Or there are so many other quotes, maybe like from Maratonci, Laki je danas malo nervozan.
Malo nervozan.
Laki is today a bit nervous. Again, that will not in anything. So there's so many that really connects us. And one of my friends said actually he will never date other girl than Serbian or Balkan girl, and I was really shocked why you are saying that. He says, how I can explain to some British girl about marathons, about and if she doesn't know all these things like jeste li vi muzičari from not yes and then leg, and then you can't. So she said, I can't get that deep understanding because there is a barrier. Now, of course, I was arguing his his point of view, because if you are with somebody of other culture, you learn so much other things. So you learn about British humor, about or whichever humor, depend where your partner is coming from, and you start to understand different culture through the humor, through the thing that they like. But there is a limit, as far as I can see. The limit in terms of you can laugh to their humor, but you cannot go so deeply into it. My husband loves Serbian films. He loves our humor, because our humor, yes, it is on some levels it's very, very, very similar. So people do say about it. So what do you think about this kind of parallel? How close and how far British and Serbian films can come of humor?
Do you know what, actually? Well, my partner is English, so and he's also an actor. So he always says that he feels that Serbian and English humour are incredibly similar, and he finds that sort of that self-deprecating, ability to laugh at each other, at one another or yourself, and take it to sort of extremes is something that's very characteristic of British humour as well, and not taking oneself too seriously. But I remember just on the back of that sort of translating certain lines out of context, I actually remembered a scene from Oktoberfest, which he hasn't seen. And I said to him, there's a scene where there's like the grandmother's, Rachela Ferraris, sat down in a chair, and, this guy comes along and the other guy says, ako baba plače daju keks. And I was kind of explaining, this woman's just sitting there, and he goes, if grandma cries, give her a biscuit. And he just completely lost it. He started laughing so much, and he says, I love that line. And he's seen Maratonci as well, and he absolutely loved it. So I think, I know that there are so many subtleties. We also went to see Constitution together, and he said it was one of the best films he's ever seen. And so I think that kind of storytelling and that particular type of humor, I think as much as some things may not be able to translate, and we might have a barrier on some level, on other levels, I think, if you're open to it, you can completely get it, if you understand. But I think you do have to understand the mentality of the people.
That is the most important, because people which do like
you can understand the context.
Yeah, the people which do like it and enjoy it so much are people that went to Serbia. I have my friends' partners which are British, and they went to Serbia and they can recognize in the film's mentality and everything. Even like there was a film, what was the film called? Smrt čoveka na Balkanu. That one, and my husband said, "Oh, that's a typical like a wooden floor in Serbia, regali, and those like all typical Serbian place." Now, when somebody watched from outside, never been to Serbia, never spoke with Serbian people, maybe spoke, but never knew them really deeply well. They have probably a little bit more trouble to understand. But those people, they can really just connect and find it really funny. And as we're on that topic now, just recently, actually, documentary film was made. That boys from Only Fools and Horses went to Belgrade to find out why Only Fools and Horses are so popular in Serbia. And film is out in September, so we have maybe proper conversation about that exactly, because
absolutely.
Case that's how we call Only Fools and Horses Serbia is something that we really recognize easily. But what I don't recognize, actually cannot appreciate the silliness of English humor when somebody put the cake in your face or somebody falls from the chair and they are laughing to that. I just can't see that at all. I just think, what is funny? It's so childish. This is one type of humor which you never get, but obviously they love it. So. There we are.
I'm a big fan of The League of Gentlemen, which is actually incredibly English. it's so eccentric, and these characters are so, they're taken to such an extreme. And I do sometimes think, would any of my Serbian friends think that this was funny? Because it really is a typically eccentric English type of humor. So I don't know, that's something that's very typically English, and I'm not sure would kind of transcend. It might not be understood. It might be too weird, you know, for someone
The other
like
thing is like in theater, so that's a high English level of communication, which very educated people have, like Oxford, Cambridge people. Those very delicate jokes, which if you don't understand British culture, literature, and all that, you understand that it's something funny there, but you will not get it maybe 100%. You need to be really English educated for that. Maybe you don't see that because you have been educated here in England, but
you know what's really interesting? I remember when I started, and this is something that I really wanted to touch upon today. When I started my drama training in London, so most of the stuff that I had done had been obviously in Serbia, and so I'd been acting in Serbian. I'd been, you know, even though I knew the English the way that I knew it and I spoke it, I didn't really perform in English. And then I came to Britain. And then within like the first sort of 6 weeks or 2 months of my drama training, I spoke to my mentor and she said, can I just ask you something? She says, emotionally, she said, actually, your English is perfect, but where are you emotionally? Where is your language? Where is your language there? Because she said it just feels like you just, almost like if you were doing it in Serbian, your emotion, you would kind of connect to it in a different way.
yeah.
And I found that really interesting because she was absolutely right. And then the opposite thing happened. The more I performed in English, the more I became emotionally connected to the language in that way in order to be able to portray the roles. So even with a bilingual knowledge, it's still kind of what your experience is of how you will emotionally connect to a text or a role or whatever. So I think there's that. It's like a very subtle underlying thing, but it's incredibly important.
Yeah, for acting and art in general, it is very important. But that gives you that richness. So I think, but you have to not struggle, but you have to work hard to also reach the level they would expect to have.
Yeah, and I think it's
Shakespeare and all these other very, very high top quality plays altogether. Very interesting. Now, you never told me who is your favorite actor or actress.
Do they have to be Serbian or?
No, not necessarily, because.
So I've got, oh my goodness, I've got quite a few. I've got quite an eclectic mix. So one of my favorite Serbian actresses is Barcot. I absolutely love her work. I've also worked with Vesna Stanojević, and she is incredible. The late Nebojša Glogovac and Dragan Mićanović, these are all amazing actors. Kate Winslet would be my favorite British actress, but there are so many, and once you sort of start reeling them off, you think, oh gosh, there's so many more, but that's kind of
you have to pick some which are more connected.
Otherwise the list goes on and on and on, because of course there are some actors as well who, and what with the advent of all the streaming services and the series, you're now finding actors that are incredibly good at certain things, and then you go, oh wow, that person is just amazing at portraying vulnerability in this way, or that person is so good at like classical text, or they have it all or whatever. But it's really exciting to see how much it's brought out of talented people, in the industry, of all the different things that they can do.
Very enjoyable to have such variety of choice. what cinematography gives, not just cinematography, but theater also. Now, your pandemic, things changed a lot, and Lots of artists find themselves in different situations, and the theaters are closed. Maybe streaming is going on. How you are coping with that, and you and your colleagues?
So yeah, it has been quite difficult. It's a challenging time, I think, for everybody, and especially for people in the arts, because it seems that all the lockdown rules are going to continue for theatres, and so people are now having to be very creative about how we're going to start up again. And I think, I think theatre will survive. The arts will survive because it's such a resilient industry. It's sort of against all odds. It will keep going because it's something that it's food for the soul. Everybody needs it, so it will carry on. But I think it's just a case of finding the right way for it to carry on. I mean, as I said, I did some filming the other day, and we were wearing masks and sanitizing and washing our hands and keeping our distance, and so it was a very, very different atmosphere to what it would normally be on set. You were very aware, but I think it will carry on, but I think it is and it will probably continue to be a very challenging time for all of us for the foreseeable future. And I just hope that we will come out of it even stronger, better, more resilient, and but creative solutions I'm sure will be found, and we will continue at some point.
Yeah, we all try to continue. Obviously, music goes on and everything goes online. So we have to adapt to the new way of projecting art, which on one way give us opportunity to research and to get more people involved, as they don't have to come to the theater, they don't have to travel, so they can see online. But on the other side, first we have to learn lots about technology. Because technology is very advanced, but not maybe as advanced as we need for this type of work. And secondly, it's a teaching, which we all usually do. You are also teaching.
I teach Lambda exams in a secondary school. So
so that's also different now. And okay, children are really great. They're really they pick up really easily everything. They are used to now technology, but us, all the around, especially my generation, we are struggling more than children do with all that. Anyway, we really will make sure, all artists will make sure that we continue our work further, because that is something that cannot really just disappear because of pandemic, and it's part of our lives. Are you going to Serbia often? Maybe not at the moment, but how often you go to Serbia?
I do. I mean, I go to Serbia, I would probably say in any normal year, I would probably go about twice a year, something like that, because my family is there. So I would say about twice a year. Sometimes maybe 3 times a year. If I had more work out there, I'd be out there more often.
What's the most there when you go? A part of going to cinemas, maybe, or theaters? Maybe you don't go. But
so I do. Yeah. Apart from the usual kind of going to my dentist, that sort of thing. So hairdresser, dentist. I love. Well, obviously, I love catching up with my friends and seeing my family. That's something that we're sort of very close knit, and I love the food. I'll be honest. That's something that I absolutely love.
You got to get up with the food too.
Yeah. And if it's summer or spring, I really enjoy just getting in the car and driving off and just seeing the sights, going into Vojvodina or wherever. It doesn't really matter, but just having like a few days out and being in nature and that sort of thing, visiting monasteries. It's always very nice to do stuff like that.
So it's also explore still. We was talking with other person, Milan Grba, about how much we haven't seen really in our country.
I know, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Maya, thank you very much for conversation, and it was really lovely chatting with you. And you have been very busy with your new series, online series called Space DIY. Can you tell us more about that, about the Debbie, your new role?
Yeah, so this was a role that started in lockdown, and it was also thanks to a very good friend of mine and a very good director, Svetlana Dimčović, who is a very successful Serbian director, works in Britain, works in Serbia as well. So she sort of suggested, like, oh, why don't we do some speeches? Why don't we like film it? Because it's lockdown and we may as well just be creative. And I was like, okay, well, I said, all right, well, I'll just write something down. And so we sort of came upon this character called Debbie, who wants to get off this pandemic planet and go into space. She's got her family there, and you know, she's like, oh, but I really want to get away from here. And then she gives lots of tips and tricks as to sort of how to deal with homeschooling, how to deal with lockdown. She does a video for Richard Branson to ask him to be a part of his space trip, and does some training videos as well. So yeah, that's been really fun. It's something that I might not have actually done had I not had the time to commit to it. So yeah, so that's been a very nice thing, a nice creative thing to do during lockdown. So yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we will have at the end, we will show our listeners one part of it, but you can find it on Facebook, is it? Is it on the Facebook?
Yeah, it's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's a website called Merchant Culture, and they have their own, which is Svetlana Dimčović's website, and it's about sort of digitalization as well of theatre and other multimedia stuff. So they have a YouTube page, and you can access all those videos there as well. Yeah.
Okay, we will tease our listeners a little bit, but they can find much more about it. I really enjoyed that show because it's funny, but it's so British. Now we're talking about
it is. Yeah.
So British about these women which are trying to find their ways around society, and I'm sure that for British people it's, I'm sure, also funny, but also for us Serbs to laugh a little bit on their account.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit kind of annoyed that in lots of films, like Serbs are portrayed as worse, the killers, and like I was watching that series Power with my son, and you have all these levels, like of mafia levels of, and you have Mexicans, you have whatever, all this, but then the worst one are Serbs. Their feeling was the worst one. Even those guys which are really cool, they are afraid of Serbia. And I always get so annoyed about it. So put that on the other side. That again, kind of politics come in, but we not talk about that. I don't want to spoil this lovely conversation, Maya. Thank you very much for this talk. Thank you very much for your involvement in events, because you've been of Serbian community, because you have been very generous giving your time, so and you've been seen around lots of events, so thank you much.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I've really enjoyed so many of the projects that I've done with the Serbian Council, and it's really nice to be involved in it, so thank you for the opportunity.
Great, so we will keep in touch, and our listeners can now enjoy a little bit of Debbie and find out what she's struggling with. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maya. Hi, Mr. Branson. I'm Debbie. It's very nice to meet you. I thought this would be the best way to approach you. So I've been in lockdown for over 8 weeks now with my family, and we live in a small flat, and it's myself, my husband, and my 3 kids. And during this time, I have come to some amazing self-discoveries, and I've acquired quite a few survival skills, which I think would make me the perfect candidate for your Virgin Galactic space program. I've realised that life's too short. I want to get off this pandemic planet, and I want to go up into space. So my preparation for this has been as follows. I would lock myself in my bathroom, get in a full bath, and put my head underwater and float. This has helped me create a gravityless environment, and I can also hold my breath for over 2 minutes. So should there be any problems with oxygen in space, I can handle it. And it's also helped drown out the voices of my family, which has been a godsend. Secondly, I've done a lot of research into space by watching space films. Gravity is my favourite. I've also seen all the alien films, so should we bump into them, I won't be surprised. I've seen The Martian many times, so I know all about space farming, and I almost get Interstellar and all the time bending stuff. Oh, speaking of farming, so as we know, lockdown has made some food difficult to source, so I've had to get quite creative in the kitchen. Now, I know you wouldn't cook in space, but I've made a dish, for example, consisting of Angel Delight, chicken, Tabasco, water, flour. Tastes amazing. And it's a combo of a main dish and a dessert. So I reckon I could make space food taste incredible. Now, I also know that you have a lot of celebrities signed up to your galactic space program, and all I can say is this: I know them better than they know themselves. I've read all the gossip mags, cover to cover. OK, Closer, Heat, Women's Zone. So I'll be able to talk to them openly about their lives. Plus, I'm a very good listener. So, as you can see, I'd be a great asset for your space program, and I wouldn't mind staying up there indefinitely. All I need is a ticket. But seeing as I've got so many skills already, you'd be mad not to send me up there on the first flight. Thanks for watching, and do drop me a line on debsinspace@flatearth.com. Right, off to Sainsbury's. See you soon.